In this video, I'm going to introduce you to macros, which is a really good way in Google Sheets to learn how AppScript writes code. You could debug potential issues and really just a good entry point as a way to quickly get up and running with automations in Google Sheets. Let's get into it. So in this spreadsheet, I've just imported some data. This is something that I routinely do, which is a really good use case for macros. And you'll notice in the extensions menu, there's a macros and you can record a macro. So let me just show you an example of one that I would run. So you can see it's recording, select all the columns and filter. And then let's say condition, filter by condition is between 11 and 29, click OK, and that filters those keywords. And what I'm trying to do here is look at the opportunities for this potential client in the SEO and content realms. Like, what are the positions that they're currently ranking for that are just off of page 1? So positions 11 to 29 because there's 10 results on page 1. I'm also going to filter by search volume in descending order, and I'm going to delete this column because I don't need that data. Just to also show you an example of some things that you can do here. I'm going to do conditional formatting. Again, text is between 11 and 29. I'll make that black with white text. Done. And let's just save that. I'm going to call that striking distance. And you can add a shortcut for Command Option Shift and then the number so that you can quickly run that if you do that really consistently. So I'm going to save that macro, and then I'm going to open up extensions AppScript, take a look at what it wrote. As you can see, it followed along with everything that I did, changed the color. This is really like the opportunity where you get to see how Google would write the code that you just executed. I will say sometimes it's not perfect. So let me just quickly import that data again. So now I have the raw data back in here, and let's see what happens if I go to macros and then run that striking distance. Authorize this. So you notice that it actually went green for a second, and that's really not what I intended. And so back over here, the reason you can see that it actually, because when I did the conditional formatting, it brought in the original colors. So I'm going to remove these lines of code, because now it's setting the black background to black and the text to white. And so actually I don't even need this one because this does both black and white at the same time. So Command S to save that, and let me undo the changes. And now Command Option Shift 1, which runs the macro that I just set up. And cool, it didn't have that green delay, which is a very small minor thing. If it gets to the end result, that's totally fine and doesn't really impact. But if you wanted a clean automation, maybe you are, selling this work, that could be a really fruitful way of doing this. And then another just general use case that I like, that I use this for, is data cleansing. So let's say I don't need these columns for my use cases. So let's go back to extensions, macros, record macro. I don't need column A, C, or M through Z. So I'm going to delete those, delete selected columns. I'm going to save that. So I saved it as data cleanse, and then I put 2 here because I already saved one as the number 1 shortcut. Okay, so I have a new sheet in here, and let's see if it works. Go to macros, and now I'm going to do the data cleanse option. And so the issue here is that it didn't actually delete columns A and C. It did delete columns M through Z. This is a really good opportunity to show you how you can look at some of the code that was written by the macros automation and perhaps, get it to the way that you want. I'm seeing that it's getting the active spreadsheet and getting the range list of all the columns that I selected. So column A, column C, and then columns M through Z. It's activating those. And then it's running the delete columns method where it gets the active range and then the column, as well as the number of columns to delete. And I think a good way of just modifying this would be, it's completely hacky, but this is what we'll do. We'll copy this and we'll remove A and C for now, and we'll start from right to left. So we'll activate columns M through Z, we'll run the delete function, and then we'll do column C and column A. And then for each of those, I'll run this, and I actually don't think we need the number of columns if we're only deleting one. Command S to save that. So I just updated the macro that I had automatically written. So let's see if I can, okay, now this is the original version of the sheet. So go back to extensions, macros, and run the data cleanse again. Awesome. And now it actually did delete the columns that I wanted, and it isolated only the data that I want on a consistent basis. So that's one way of getting these macros up and running, and just understanding how Google Apps Script works so that you can continue to extend the functionality of the automations you're working with. Something else I want to show you is using the relative versus absolute within macros. So I'm going to create a new macro where if I'm hovering over this cell and then I go to here and say, what is the search volume minus the current traffic as like the opportunity size for getting that piece of content to rank better. Obviously this is not a perfect science because not 100% of these 20,000 searches get clicked. Just to show you what I mean, save that, we'll call it relativity, and we'll put number 3 because we've already used 1 and 2 of the shortcuts. And so now if we were to do Command Option Shift 3, because we just saved that, it just quickly will do the math for that row. And this is just to show you what that relativity, and again, it's when you record the macro use relative references instead of using absolute references, because this, no matter what, it'll just do it wherever you tell it to apply the macro. So if you applied it here, it would always happen to this. Like when I first set this up, it would happen in H40, which is where this currently is, versus wherever I currently am relatively. So hopefully that is a helpful distinction as well. I'm going to cancel that. And yeah, I hope this was a helpful overview of digging into some of the ways that macros can help you automate your work, and also learn a little bit more about the apps script language, help debug, and help understand how this code is written. So I hope this was a helpful overview of macros. By no means is this in depth, but I hope that just showing you a few examples and you'll be able to play around with it and understand how this all works together. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your interest in automating away your repetitive tasks.